Hello and welcome again to a new episode of the IdeaCast. Our topic today is how to get ready for transformation and Industry 4.0. My name is Thomas Wittig, and again, I'll be leading you through the session today. So today we're focusing first and foremost on two areas of readiness, namely the people and individual readiness and the organizational readiness. And I will also mention a couple of tools that you can use to get started. Now, it is obvious that we are really right in the beginning of a new digitally empowered area. And this is driven by a number of forces in the industry and in research, for example. So we see a lot more different devices, digital devices, but also we see an increasing amount of sensors built in the devices into the smartphones, but also on an industrial level, of course. And so that drives a lot more data. Now we have seen a tremendous growth in data volume, also in digital video volume, etc. But with the increasing proliferation of devices and sensors, we should see much more, a really large explosion of data. And now this prompted also advances in computing and data science and in things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., which in turn is driving new applications for what we now call Industry 4.0, or a new era in the industrial revolution, if you want. But this is somewhat different because it is driving also an important feedback loop. So first of all, with the Industry 4.0 applications, we see things in terms of automation in many areas. And that's not only the mechanical automation, of course, but the digital automation, where we see a lot of the tasks and jobs that people do today are being augmented or even automated to a large degree. We see the rise of robotics application right now. Some of it might be actually even scary if you look at it. And it comes also with a huge responsibility and ethical questions, of course. And we see more and more intelligent systems. And as these systems are deployed and active, they even drive more data. They drive also more research, more funding into the previously mentioned areas of devices, sensors, and computing power and analytics power, of course. So this is a tremendous, powerful feedback loop that we will see evolving over the next year. And I don't think that many businesses and also governments actually have embraced what is really happening right now. So a lot of people are still observing and say, okay, we have to do something about it. It is a key priority for us. It's definitely on our leadership agenda, pretty much on top. But the question is, how do you get started and where do you get started? Because there are so many different opportunities. You could do so many things, and the question is, what is the right thing for you and for your business? And also timing, of course, is of the essence, because if you don't get started now, you miss part of the learning curve and the momentum, and you may expose your company, your business, or your even government institution, your ecosystem, to a large scale risk. So what are the areas of readiness that we should take a look at when we talk about digital and business transformation and in the context of Industry 4.0? First and foremost, of course, the people. So empowering the people and also going with that, the building the organization and organizational capabilities are important. But also we need to engage other stakeholders in the ecosystem. So for example, our suppliers, our vendors, our co-innovation partners. This is especially true for organizations in the ICT industry, also in IT, but also in other areas where you have also, let's say, more or less complex supply chains. Also, these need to be engaged and enabled, of course. But if we focus only for today about the organizational side, because I think this is something that is pretty much top of mind for a lot of managers and leaders right now. So let's dive into that a little bit more. And over time, I will come back to the other areas, of course. But what does it take to get ready for transformation and also transition? So if you are in an industry, for example, which is transitioning from, let's say, one state, which is today or was in the past, to a new state, how do you prepare yourself? How do you get on top of that momentum, on top of that wave? Now, what we can find in a nutshell, again and again, in many examples, many projects, that the readiness is not about the funding. It's not about the money. It's not about the technology. It's about the people and the organization. So what can you do? You could start, for example, finding out what's happening right now with a 360 review. And I will talk about that in the next slide, how that looks like. But also you need to get your leadership ready and initiate a cultural shift, especially on the ground level where people are really closest to the work, because there you need the most engagement and commitment actually from everybody. You need to have a strategic architecture. So we will come back to that topic as well in later idea casts. And of course, change management in a new dimension, but also not to forget the key infrastructures, the digital infrastructures that you need to have. For example, if you want to transform your marketing operations or your sales team and the processes, then the question is, what are the key modern infrastructures that you need to put in place in order to get the insights, get the signals from the market, and turn this vital function into a digital powerhouse, of course, and enabling the people to work with the new systems, work with the new tools, and drive value for the organization. And last but not least, capacity planning is key, because let's face it, if you're running an organization, you probably have your hands full, and the plates are full with all kinds of tasks that you have to do, from winning customers to retaining customers, delivering services and products. So how do you actually perform a transformation on top of what's going on? So it's key to plan the capacity and also account for the shifts in capacity. So shifting from, let's say, one area, one task where you're performing, and you need a lot of capacity today, to something that's coming in future. So again, talking a little bit more about this notion of the 360-degree readiness. So this is what I like to do with organizations, for example, when they come in and say, okay, we want to get started, and could you take a look at our business? And I like to do a 360 discussion to begin with. And the output of that would be, of course, a first set of recommendations and so on. I'll get back to that in a second. But the 360 has essentially two sides. One is the strategy and vision and mission side, I would say, to figure out what should be done, what are our plans in terms of market, services, products, the organization strategy, supply chain strategies, etc. And then corresponding to that, how is the organization doing in terms of the execution? So how good are we today? And how do we compare to other peers, for example, in the market, or what's now a new standard in the market? And so this, from that, we can drive, we get a performance analysis, so a gap analysis, and we can drive the first recommendation and come back to the key strategies. So how should the strategies change or replaced with other strategies, and then break that down into concrete action plans and projects. And based on that, also drive learning experience for the entire organization, so that people start getting engaged, of course. Because you might be actually surprised what you find in your organization in terms of capabilities that you have today, or interest that you have today, and energy that is not really engaged. And it's also important to have a monitoring dashboard, so that you know how you're performing over time, and how your focus is shifting over time, how you create capabilities over time. And then once you get going, it's important to continuously optimize, because as you get new data, new signals from your processes, you can fold that into your optimization efforts, optimize or improvement projects, we would call this. Now, in terms of the people side, it's important to prepare the contributors and the leaders for the transformation and transition. And that, of course, has to be job role specific. So people who work in, for example, development or developing new products, new offerings, they have a different need than people, let's say, more downstream in the value chain when you're working in customer success or in the field service organization, etc. So, and then it's all about identifying and acquiring new skills, new competencies, and new tools. So that's the key, of course. And there's a whole gamut of tools that you can take a look at. But the question is, what are what I would call the evergreen requirements, the evergreen skills that you will need in the long run. And for the leaders and managers in the organization, it's also about understanding the new dynamics of change, because in this new world of digitally empowered innovation, we see a very rapid uptake. If things go well, actually, we see very rapid uptake, adoption of new products and services, but it can also go the other way. So, but I'm talking a lot about the dynamics of business and innovation and change in my podcast, so you hear more about that as you watch some of the playlists. But we also have to spend time and take a look at the attitude and commitment in the organization, because at the end of the day, nothing really gets done if the people are not committed, driving towards the change, and if they don't see the added value for driving the change towards a transformation. And then it's important to engage the teams, engage the people, and also the key contributors to surfacing ideas that you might have in the organization already. So this don't necessarily have to be digital ideas, or let's say ideas in online marketing or whatever, but they can be related to the processes, because the people closest to the job, they will understand how the processes perform or do not perform today, and where the opportunities are, not only on the process level, but also on the product level, on the offerings level, and so on. And that creates a learning culture. So one way to get started is to conduct an engagement survey, and also what I would call workshop labs or laboratory settings, or strategy conferences, where you engage the entire team. And I will put some comments in the briefing center, so you will see also an example of an engagement survey, which you can take individually, and that is also helping people to identify their personal learning roadmaps, which start to become aware about a certain topic, about a new requirement or new tool set, for example, and then apply it on the job, and then teaching and coaching others, so going more into a leadership role. So that would be actually a great transition and initiating a transformation, actually, fairly well. So two examples we will have in the tool set for this session this week. One will be an organizational survey. So it's an example of a survey where you can access actually yourself or your own organization, your team, in terms of the key competencies, and the output will be some individual recommendation and benchmark. But we are also prepared to do this specifically for our organization. And then your personal individual survey, and this will be, so there will be an initial version, and it will be refined over time as we are releasing the deep dives in the other area. So, but the overall survey, I think, gives you a good idea of how good your current capabilities are in dealing with the change and understanding what is happening, and it gives you some insights on what to look for. So in coming close to the conclusion today, again, I want to remind that transformation is more about people and system leadership and system design and culture than it is about money and technology. So that's a key thing to keep in mind. It's not enough to throw money and people and headcount and technology into this problem space. It's more about an engagement process, and that's really the key to keep in mind. So what can you do in conclusion? First, determine your current position. I showed you a couple of examples to get you going in the right direction. So start with a 360 review, a workshop, and some assessments. And there you can identify the gaps and new requirements, and then start engaging your team and the key stakeholders. And if necessary, get some outside help. But I would always recommend, especially in this particular transition, that you build the internal capabilities, because that's really important in order to sustain your rate of innovation in the long run. So you want to be self-sufficient in your efforts, but if necessary, you can always get outside help in terms of advisory, coaching, etc. Now, if you have further questions about this, join the briefing center, or if you would like to nominate a topic, a particular question, you can also submit that for the next IdeaCast. And if you find value in these IdeaCast, I would be happy if you could subscribe and share the information on the social channels. And here's a list of the places where you can find more information. So I wish you good luck, and I'm looking forward to your comments and ideas moving forward. So take care. Good luck.